Our next guest started out her political career as a consumer advocate, leading the campaign to put expiration dates on food, if I understand that correctly. She is now in her 9th term representing the 9th Illinois Congressional District in the House of Representatives. She is a leading congressional progressive and a personal favorite of ours. We are delighted to welcome on the show Representative Jan Schakowsky. Representative Schakowsky, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and you got the expiration date issue right. When we're in gridlock here in Congress, I like to hang out in the dairy section of my grocery store, watch people check dates, remind myself, yes, we can make change in this world. It's possible.
Absolutely. And, that rule has probably saved my health on a number of occasions and disappointed me a couple of times, too, when I was sure there was something on the refrigerator I could use. But it's great to have you, and thanks for coming on the program. And I wanted to ask you, I think, I don't know if you remember, but you and I did an interview right before the 2010 congressional elections. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to kind of circle back with you on a couple of the things we talked about then, which is, I perennially worry about energizing the base, getting people out there, bringing working class voters into the process and exciting them. Do I have reason, you think, to be worried about 2016?
No, I don't think you have reason. I actually think, especially hard to believe on, when we're struggling here to get anything really done. I think we're in a progressive moment. I think we're seeing it on the Democratic side for sure. I think that the presidential race, I'm supporting Hillary, but I'm certainly happy that Bernie is in this race and part of the debate. And hearing the kinds of things that both of our presidential candidates, at least 2 out of the 4, I guess, now are saying. But beyond that, I really do think the American people have had it and that they're really getting it now, that they have been royally cheated by all of the fruits of their labor going to the very, very top. This attack on any kind of a middle-class agenda here in Congress that's going to help them to make ends meet and to help them have the kind of opportunities that their parents had. And so I feel like we're ready, poised for a change. Now, we talked before the 2010 election. One of the things that we're going to have to get over is that there is no such thing as an off-year election. Those are the years that our people don't come out because there's no president on the ballot, and we're going to have to get past that because too many important things are happening in these so-called off years. But this is an on year. It's a very exciting race, another chance to make history. And for me anyway, and have the first woman to be president of the United States, I think we're going to energize a lot of voters.
Well, I certainly hope so, and I guess I think, first of all, I couldn't agree with you more. I think we're in a wonderful progressive moment. I think people get it. And I think by implication you agree with that. I think people have figured out what's going on in our economy, in our world, and what needs to be done, and they're feeling the polls show it right and left. That, for example, the NBC News poll that came out just the other day affirmed the polls that have been done in the past, showing that I think 61% of prospective voters want to see Social Security expanded, and they want to see a tax on millionaires to do it. And I think of those, if I recall correctly, 29% of them would be very favorably disposed towards a candidate who advocated that, and the remainder would be favorably disposed.
Now, let's be clear, to get to 61%, you have to have Republicans in that mix, and that's what we're finding. You can go any place, any day, and talk to seniors in any state and say, are you for not only protecting but expanding Social Security? And there will be a resounding yes to that. People know, especially since private pensions are disappearing, because most Americans now are worried about retirement security, that Social Security is the basis of any kind of hope to retire with dignity.
Right. And that gets exactly to the next topic I wanted to discuss with you, Representative Jan Schakowsky, which is reaching the Republicans and reaching the independent voters. It's been a constant source of, I'm sure, frustration for many folks that if you go down issue by issue, and Social Security is one we've been talking about, but job creation, a progressive taxation structure, taxing corporations, on issue after issue after issue, we have an electorate that, as you said, is progressive. Even Republicans, often a plurality or majority of Republicans will agree with these positions, for example, as with Social Security. So then the question is, I guess, can the Democratic Party be specific enough and aggressive enough in pursuing these voters to woo some of them and win some of them, you think?
Well, we're going to take advantage of this summer, which is a big anniversary year. On June 14th is the 50th anniversary of the Older Americans Act. Actually, it's July 14th is the 50th anniversary of the Older Americans Act. Then we come up on July 30th. That's the 50th anniversary of Medicare and Medicaid. And the big one on August 14th, Social Security will be 80 years old, absolutely never missed a check, has always been there, and even has cost of living adjustments. You don't even find that with most pensions. And this is the prize. If the Republicans want to mess with Social Security, and let's face it, you're hearing from some of the candidates for president saying that they would diminish Social Security in some way. That is a loser, I'm happy to say. And so Social Security is absolutely the heart of economic security for American workers. And by the way, not just workers. It's really the only family protection against the loss of income due to disability or to death. And it's the single largest source of retirement income, as modest as it is. And that's why we want to actually make it even better.
Could we get that into the party platform, you think, in 2016?
Oh, I think so. And good idea. I'll start working on that today.
Yeah, I think, it's just, I think voters like specifics nowadays. And, I still think back, Representative Schakowsky, to the budget you put together, must have been 5 years ago or more now, which was so filled with great ideas for putting people back to work. And I wish we'd been able to get that budget passed, because I think people would be seeing even more job creation than we've seen, and so on, even more.
The notion that government can't help create jobs is absolutely ridiculous. It's always just the private sector. But when we have an infrastructure investment, then who do you think gets hired? Often it's these contractors who are going to help build the roads and fix the bridges and repair our schools. So of course the private sector benefits, and the whole economy benefits, and you put thousands and thousands of people back to work. They don't want to do a darn thing, not one thing, to help put people back to work. And when they are working, they are also contributing substantially to Social Security and their own retirement security.
Right, and they're paying taxes. So we get more revenue that way, too. So in the end, we get jobs and growth. Now, one of the things that frustrated, another one of the things that frustrated us in 2010 was we saw the Republicans come out that year, as you well know, because that was not a good year for Democrats. We saw the Republicans actually, this is the way I put it, correct me if you disagree, but I think on issues like Social Security and Medicare, rhetorically, they ran to the Democrats' left. They had they called it was vaporware, but they had what they called the Seniors' Bill of Rights, and they capitalized on certain fears. The guys who had just tried 5 years before to privatize Social Security were now running, as I recall, as the defenders of Social Security.
Worse than that, remember they ran ads, and actually they did it even in the last cycle, accusing Democrats of cutting billions of dollars from Medicare,
right,
which was a complete and total lie. We did stop subsidizing some Medicare Advantage private drug insurance companies. We did do that. And then we plowed all that money back into Medicare. And now they have the gall, and still do, to just lie about it. Just absolutely lie, creating all this doubt in the mind of older Americans. So if you're saying, are we going to be very clear on who's the friend of these programs, who's really stood up over the decades, the 8 decades for Social Security and the 5 decades for Medicare, we need to be very clear that it's us. I think it's a good idea to put it very clearly in the platform.
Yeah, expansion. Yeah, because I think that what do I know? But I think that you're the expert here. But it seems to me that Representative Jan Schakowsky, that people have gotten suspicious of rhetorical feints in the right direction if it isn't concrete. I think if you say to them, "Here it is in black and white. We want to expand it. They want to cut it." It just seems to me that would be awfully effective.
It absolutely is that simple. And, we know how to do that. For example, I think a lot of women really could benefit from the expansion of Social Security. If we could give caregiver credits. So, all the women who will take time off because they need to be at home with small children. They take time off from work. Or they need to take a leave from their job and not get paid because they need to take care of an elderly parent or in-law. And so that means that they are not contributing to their own retirement through Social Security. Well, what if we gave credit to those women for the work that they're doing, taking care of family? That would make a huge difference. Obviously, also, equal pay for equal work would make a huge difference because wage inequality follows women into retirement.
Right.
So there are ways to make up for that, like this caregiver tax credit that would even the playing field somewhat.
It evens the playing field, and it also shows respect for the work that primarily women do as caregivers, right? It's an acknowledgement of that contribution, and I like it on that level as well.
The other kinds of thing that we could look at, the fastest growing senior citizen population is the over 85. Most of whom have, or many of whom are, most of whom are women, and many of whom have outlived their savings.
Right.
And so giving a little boost for the over 85 crowd, and it's getting more crowded every day, which is great, would also be, I think, a welcome change for many people, not to have to worry that I'm going to live too long, and I'm not going to be able to afford to live too long. It's a blessing if you have the resources in order to stay well.
Right. Well, listen, my 91-year-old mother could use it. That's for sure.
There you go.
And by the way, it's just in my mind to say, I know you're a Hillary supporter, and Hillary would be a historic first in the presidency. But I do want to mention that Bernie would be the first Jewish American, so it shouldn't be a total loss, as we used to say.
Okay, there you go. We could find a lot of firsts.
That's right.
As a Jewish person myself, that's a good thing.
Right. So everybody's happy. But the one other thing I wanted to ask you about, Representative Schakowsky, is the trade vote, the Trade Promotion Authority. It passed. I think people are assuming that this so-called fast-track provision having passed means that there's a very good likelihood that the Trans-Pacific Partnership itself will also pass, given the limitations on debate and amending and so on. Is it your sense, first of all, that is correct?
If people are thinking that, they better think again.
Okay.
Because I think I know the battle is just beginning. An amazing coalition came together, and for a short time we showed the strength of the power of organized labor and the environmentalists and the senior and civil rights organizations to slow down the movement toward fast track, which greases the skids for the passage of a very bad trade deal. Bad for American workers, bad for workers around the world, bad for consumers and people who stand for human rights, bad for the environment, and it actually says that we will not fight for climate change within any kind of trade agreement, which is just unbelievable to me, could make the price of prescription drugs at home and abroad so high that life-saving drugs that are needed in poor countries around the world would be impossible, and even Medicare and Medicaid efforts to lower prescription drug prices could be challenged by the big pharmaceutical companies through this trade deal. I mean, here's the problem, I think. We really do need to get the message out, because if you read the newspaper, you will not understand what the elements of this deal are. I'm not talking about just in broad scope. It's good for the United States to be the main player in the Asian countries. We don't want China to dominate. That kind of rhetoric means nothing. People need to know that this will actually make the disparity between the rich and the rest greater than it has been now. It's another raw deal for ordinary people, putting intellectual property rights, putting the rights of big corporations way ahead of the rights of ordinary, hardworking Americans.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more on everything you've said, and I would add to that, looking forward to 2016, I don't think it's going to help Democrats win elections either if a Democratic president puts this through. It's just my personal opinion, but it just strikes me that it's also politically a very bad move. So what can people out there do to help fight this thing?
They can contact their legislators and say no to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. But they can also go online and, for example, the Communications Workers of America has been fabulous in getting out information about what's really in the various chapters of the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, this big trade deal that will encompass 40% of the world's economy, 12 countries. And people should go to, Google, the Communication Workers of America, but CWA trade fact sheets. They Google that. They will get the kind of just solid information that they need. Their questions will be answered on what's really in it. And I think if anybody saw that, they could judge for themselves. This is not something that we want. Can I give an example?
Of course.
So when under this trade agreement, corporations can actually sue governments. I'm talking about federal, state, local governments if the policies of those governments inhibit their profit making. So we, the United States, just lost a case before the World Trade Organization where Canada and Mexico sued the United States, saying that we should not be able to put country of origin, right, as in United States of America, on our meat products. Now, the beginning of putting country of origin on, in many ways, came out of the mad cow disease concerns, so people would know actually where their food is coming from a safety and health point of view. We lost that because Canada said they have lost $1 billion because of that provision of putting Made in America on the product. That is just a tiny example of the kind of lawsuits that we could face concerning hard-won, decades-long fights for consumer protection. They could challenge, other countries could challenge just plain old Made in America on garments, on anything. We could have them suing us because Medicare has a cost savings method, or the Veterans Administration is selling less expensive drugs and depriving the pharmaceutical companies of greater profits.
And when you say suing us, Representative Schakowsky, as I understand it, what that really means, they're not even suing us in American court. They're suing us in private corporate courts whose proceedings are not even open to the public, but we have to abide by the decisions they make because we've agreed to that in this deal.
These are tribunals that are set up, as you pointed out. It's very important distinction between our courts and some sort of a extrajudicial deciding body that will look at these cases, and the people who will be the judges, it'll be a rotating group, one day could be deciding a corporate versus United States case, and the next week representing those corporations.
Right.
I mean, it's a really skewed system in favor of the multinational rich corporations.
And no wonder they're trying so hard to keep it secret. I think even you members of Congress, I picture you guys like Get Smart having to go in a phone booth. And, there are all these restrictions for when you can
right.
pick up a shoe phone and fall through the floor. So,
yeah, I mean, it's almost that bad. Had to go down to the Intelligence Committee section, and look at, I went down and actually looked at the pharmaceutical, the medicines chapter. Cannot take notes.
Right.
Cannot bring my staff. Cannot talk to anybody about what I've read. Can you believe that? So over the next months, as this agreement is being negotiated, we need to bring out of the shadows the exact provisions. And I just feel confident that the American people, regardless of party, will take a look at that and say, no, this is not a good deal.
Well, we'll have your back in that in any way we can, because you can't do much with it, but the corporate representatives have had their time with it. Now it's our turn to shoot it down. So Representative Jan Schakowsky, thanks so much for coming on the program.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. We will be right back after this. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.